Live.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Pseudo-Random podcast, episode 21 for October 11th, 2016. I am the host, one of the hosts, JoeoftheWest.
And I am his co-host, Zeal of Sparta.
21 for October 11th, and I'm doing the stupid feedback again. Shoop. One day I will have that where it never ever happens.
Turns out those expensive switchboards are nice to have.
Yes, they are. So, as I so rudely went over your introduction, Zeal, I guess you could say again. Or not. I think everybody knows who you are by now.
We're pretty chill.
Okay. Well, let's dispense with the geez, Joe sucks and can't run a YouTube stream. And
trust me, today we will be talking about people/companies that suck way more than that.
Yes. Well, anyway, just to get the intro over, if you want to see more of what I do, this YouTube channel is a good one, or you can follow me on twitter.com/JoeoftheWest. And your stuff is...
Yeah, my stuff is basically straightforward. It's youtube.com/Zeal of Sparta or at Twitter, Zeal of Sparta. Same goes for Twitch and Beam.pro. Still haven't set that up yet.
I was about to ask if you even touched that, because the only time I ever think about it is when you mention it.
Well, about the only time I ever think about it, too, is when I mention it.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's been in the roster for a while now. It's just not at the top of the queue yet.
Well, it's, it is what it is.
It's
so I guess without further, as Professor Farnsworth says, without further stalling for time, let's go on to the first story, which actually belongs to you, which I have an opinion on it, too.
Yes, HP. How dare you? We love you, but we hate you sometimes.
We love them?
Well, they tend to make good desktop computers at work, and they tend to not break. But I was being nice. And this thing that they have done is not so nice. And, it's all related to our good old friends, the DMCA. In Section 1201, apparently. For copyright protection, HP is well known for making printers, typically good printers, and they are very common. A lot of people use them, and a lot of businesses use them. But one thing that has been a controversy for many years, as far as printers go, is putting third-party inks, which are not super pricey like OEM ink, into printers. The thing is, HP used a, quote, security update recently to, quote, update these computers and patch a feature. And what they were really covertly doing was making the printer self-destruct when you try to use ink that's not theirs specifically. And they say this is a copyright issue, not a function issue.
Yeah, and that's the part that bugs me, because they've been doing this forever, and it's not just HP. Everybody did. The first time I ever ran into this issue was on Lexmark. They had but theirs didn't self-destruct. It just counted how much ink went through, and once that much ink went through the jets, it just killed the chip.
Right.
It sounds like this one, okay, I didn't get to read the whole article, but it looks like it's actually tearing the printers up, like shutting the printers down.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. And Cory Doctorow wrote this article a couple of weeks ago that the way they go about it is pretty bad. Formerly, you were able to put a third-party or aftermarket ink cartridges into the printers, but the way HP decided to stop this was quite foul, in my opinion and in Cory's opinion, that they covered it up by pushing it out as a security update. So if anybody was even looking at the update notes, they would say, "Oh my goodness, we should patch this now. Printers are constantly vulnerable to attack." If anybody is wary of that, knowledgeable of that, they would want to install a security update. But the thing is, they basically went around everybody's backs to update it and cause the issue where people can't use third-party ink, and if they did, it could damage or destroy the printers, as far as I know. And they also did another thing with this whole quote security update. They basically told researchers that no, you cannot look at it, you can't alert us, you can't do anything with it. No, no, no. And they decided to push for protection under the DMCA section 1201, which is a copyright section saying you cannot touch it, you cannot mess with it. And these researchers that would try to help patch these security flaws, which are super common in printers, they could heavily penalize those researchers. And that is also bad. And we're not even really touching on the subject of, hey, this is a bit of a money grab, Apple style.
No, this is a big time money grab.
Yeah.
To me, this is the same issue as the John Deere one that we keep bringing up.
Yes.
Where, it's. And they're not the only ones to do it. I was thinking earlier. There's some projectors that have and they say it's for safety, and I almost believe it on a projector, where the bulb.
The bulbs
can. The bulb once, and it'll self-destruct the bulb. I mean, it doesn't blow the bulb up; it just won't let you run it anymore.
It's like a fuse.
Yeah. But yeah, there's no. I mean, what safety issue could you run into if you refilled your ink? Oh no, we poured ink or toner all over the floor, which is bad, but still.
Yeah, and even then, it's like really, really unlikely. I deal with printers every day at work. As you know, I do a lot of CAD work, and I print out things from models, 2D diagrams, and maps to working with prints and renderings of 3D models themselves. And I tend to work on the printers themselves just to keep them maintained. The worst problem I've ever had with a printer, due to non-top-notch quality ink, is that the heads will kind of clog up a little bit, or the ink will dry out a little bit, or maybe it's a little too fluid, so it comes across as a little overbled in the colors. Usually nothing notably bad.
Well,
I've had clean the heads. You can
because I've
replace the ink.
Seriously screwed up.
Sorry, what was that?
I said I've had them leak pretty bad, but that's because I seriously screwed up refilling the ink. But that wasn't a security or a safety issue. That was a messy hands and countertop issue.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you could God forbid, you can stain your clothes or your carpet. Wish we could stain the carpet at work. Bad choice. Anyways, HP should not pull these kinds of stunts as a money grab. People should buy their printers for a good quality printer, not because this. I mean,
right.
People should be paying HP for a quality product, not for stuff they don't really need because they're basically forced to use something because a feature was taken away. And what made me think of Apple in relation to this story is like the headphone jacks, for example, and the $160 wireless earbuds with a DAC effectively just to replace something that was fine before.
Oh, you're talking about the fact they've removed the headphone jack.
Yeah, that royally pissed me off. Ironically, I was I was listening to the live event wearing corded Sennheiser headphones, and also I had also ordered another set of Sennheiser headphones, corded, which I'm wearing now and speaking through now,
right?
the day before the event. And when they announced that in the $160 device, eh,
Yeah, well, it is what it is.
yeah, it's
You know,
disgusting.
and I
But
hate that phrase, but I mean that's been saying that a lot lately.
like
But anyway, so let's move.
companies, yeah, they just need to stop doing stuff like this, just grabbing money at every tip and turn.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on because this is one that's been of interest to me. You know how I said a few weeks ago uh, how I really was looking forward to No Man's Sky.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was
it
too.
looked amazing, and I didn't buy it because oh man, the complaints were out there, just outrageous, and they've gotten so bad that the UK, the Advertising Standards Authority, is actually investigating them for false advertising.
And this doesn't surprise me, considering the guy running the show over at the game studio has made so many vague promises that sort of spun the speculation mill, and people got really hyped about it, and it just kind of
Well,
went out
I
of hand.
expected. I mean, from what I've seen on, I've watched some Let's Players on YouTube, and from what I've seen there, I think I'd really enjoy the game. But it was on PS4. It was not on the PC, which that's not a killer in itself, other than the fact I don't have a PS4. And
No, it's on PS. It's on the PC too. It's
it's on
just
the PC
yeah.
now, but the PC version is the one that's getting all the negative reviews because the PC version was supposed to have multiplayer. It was supposed to have these massive space battles. It was supposed to have. Well, I've got the list right here. Uh, yeah, flowing water. Okay, fine. Speed of galaxy warp. Okay, so I actually want to applaud them. I'm going to defend them a little bit, even though I'm kind of don't want to defend them too much. The galaxy warp, that was their loading screen. That's clever because that's basically when you go from one galaxy to another. The loading screen is you going to warp and you're just traveling instead of a big screen plastered up just saying loading or anything like that.
You mean like what Destiny has done for a few years now? Their
Wow.
loading screen is basically your ships leaving one planet, going through warp, and dropping down into the atmosphere of the upcoming planet. And when it's fully loaded, you descend towards the planet itself.
Okay. I mean,
So
that
Destiny has
sounds
done
like
that first, and it's
well, they're
yeah,
actually they have not done that first. This has been done a bunch of times, but
or before rather.
a lot of um, I can't think of any examples right now, but there's a lot of older games that have basically done a clever loading screen like that. So
Yeah,
I'm looking at it, and
I believe.
that's a complaint. I guess they mean the total time it takes to load, but still, what it's loading is immense. So if it loads a new, because everything is procedurally generated, and that is correct. They do procedurally generate everything, and once you go into a new area, that area doesn't exist, and
Right.
so it's got to generate everything. It's like when you play in Minecraft and you just take off running and you watch the world start to build around you. That's because it takes it a while to build around you. Now imagine if you were doing a massive 3D space shooter with planets and space stations and aliens and other ships flying around. You know,
Right.
so yeah,
But
but that's my defense on them because they're basically. I just basically want to say duh on them getting investigated or him or however you want to say it. I think it's a company technically, so it isn't them.
yeah, it
And
was mostly like one or a few guys though trumpeting
yeah,
features.
they're missing a lot of features, and like I said, if it had been like, okay, we're going to release now. Actually, I know what it is. I know what it feels like. The game, the PC version of the game, which like I said, I haven't played, but from what I've seen in the other videos and screenshots and stuff, feels like an early access game. Feels like an 80%, 70% were there game. And there's only really one goal, and it's to basically find the center of the galaxy, from what I understand. So
yeah, I've seen some people play it too. It uses a lot of the same resources. Like the animals are not truly procedurally generated; they pull from a library, and they sort of just mash the features together.
well, that's what procedurally generated is. Like if you did 100% procedurally generated, you'd have things like giraffes looking things, but the heads are coming out of their butts or something stupid. I mean,
but
there's a template.
I've heard people complain about the actual variety, and some of the things turn out.
If you want to be technical,
small body, big fat ram head or something.
Yeah, and I'm looking at a picture now. I don't know if it's up on your screen at the moment. I mean, there's these creatures supposedly precisely in this form won't show up again. But you got it. That's what procedurally generated doesn't mean random. Procedurally generated means here's a set of rules for creating creatures. So here's a set of rules for creating a flying creature or an herbivore or a lizard creature or whatever. I don't know how they set up their rules.
Right, and what I meant by their complaints were that the rules are pretty typical, as in they reoccur fairly often, more often than they feel like they should. But yeah, it was overbilled and it was oversold and underbilled, especially for the PC fan base, and they still are encountering their optimization issues and whatnot.
Now that I really can't stand. Once you release for a PC, it should be all your test code or all the stuff that slows it down should be gone.
Yeah, I know a couple of people who bought into it, and they have stopped playing it effectively. I mean, they haven't even touched it, but once or twice since then, and it's very much an unpolished, lumpy turd.
I love that. A polished, lumpy turd.
Unpolished,
yes. Lumpy turd. Sorry. Still, either one, that is hilarious. But yeah, I'm afraid that No Man's Sky is basically going to splat, and then somebody's going to come through, which I do like this. Somebody's going to come through eventually and basically do the exact same concept, but do it correctly. And we'll have the No Man's Sky that I was excited to look for.
Right. The atmosphere looks pretty neat still. It just they need to fix their bugs, add more actual variety, and follow up on their promises or their alluded to promises, and that will help them tremendously.
Yeah, well, I think the ship sailed. I think there's too much negative press that I don't think they're going to recover. Even if we snapped our fingers and tomorrow everything that was promised was in there, that it would probably do okay. But
unfortunately, they have burnt the main mast of the sailboat. Yep. Okay. And that is the case.
All right. Well, I'm just queuing yours up here. So I guess
now, speaking of companies under investigation, Comcast has had a diminutive $2.3 million fine crammed in their face by the FCC. Now, as people may have heard or complained because they found out themselves, Comcast has been cramming additional charges and services that the customer had not ordered in the past. And that caught the government's attention, and the government, the FCC in particular, has investigated since, and they now have found them guilty. So they are fining them. Now,
Well, good.
$2.3 million is a nice chunk of money, but it's not all that much in the whole grand scheme of things. As far as the company goes, they're a pretty
Well,
big company.
at least it's something. I mean, because they're here. We'll pay the largest civil pen. Okay, so apparently 2.3 million is the largest ever penalty
Of
from the
this
FCC.
kind. Yes, from the FCC. Now, will Comcast give a hoot? Who knows? They are supposed to be more. They're supposed to follow up and keep things under attack for.
Well, I will say this because I'm about to move, most likely, into Comcast territory, and I've not been looking forward to it because I've not been too impressed with Comcast in the past. But at least this way, if they start screwing me over, I can threaten to file with the FCC and maybe get something.
Who knows? I thought you were already in Comcast territory,
Wait,
considering.
You're right. It's
Yeah.
not Comcast.
They own pretty much most of the usable bits of the entire state, except for a few regions.
Charter's the one I was thinking of. So Comcast, I've never had problems with. I've had some problems with their technicians when they come out, because when the technicians come out, they're not very bright. But as far as ordering services and getting everything set up in the back end, I did have one issue, which was a very annoying one with TiVo. Basically what had happened is when we got business internet put in here, and this bugs the crap out of me, every time a technician comes out here, they replace our splitter with one that's worse.
Oh.
So every time they come out here, we lose TV service.
Ugh.
So
that's not good.
Yeah. So they came out, they installed the business internet, which worked, and then we didn't have TV service. So I call Comcast, I tell them what's going on, and the guy says, well, let me forward you to someone who can help. And they forward the phone to TiVo. And the TiVo guy says, we can't do anything about it. Here, let's look at the signal quality. Okay, yeah, that signal, that error code means there is no signal coming from your cable.
Jeez.
And so I go back to Comcast, and they say, well, we can't fix TiVos. It's like, it's not the TiVo, and it was working before your technician came out here. Well, let me forward you to a proper technician, and forward me back to TiVo. And I thought the guy from TiVo was angry and not even hiding it. It was hilarious. But apparently, I mean,
it's possible he's gotten those calls before.
Well, it's not possible. It happens all the time. It's like a constant thing. Basically, if you have a problem and you have a TiVo, it's TiVo's fault. They could come up and cut the cable off the pole. Well, it's your TiVo.
It's like, hey, they did it.
So
it reminds me of a misbehaving child that would just point the finger at someone else as soon as they feel the burn a bit.
Feel the burn. Feel the burn. Oh, wait, that's something else. So anyway, you've got another story, and let's just clip through all these since they're all basically Comcast.
Yeah, there's multiple links, but it's really it's just two separate but kind of similar things. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. People, just to wrap up that bit, I have been getting a number of complaints from my friends saying I'm red barring a lot. And I'm having some lag issues as well, to boot, in certain games and other bits of content, in buffering issues. even though I am hardwired into my Comcast internet provider. Only choice, by the way, until Google Fiber completes their work in the near future.
And I guarantee you, Comcast quality will just suddenly get much better, magical.
Oh yeah, we've already got suddenly much more magical Comcastic internet. It went up from the previous 70, which was their blast internet, I believe, to whatever the new one is at 250 megabits per second up and down, and yet it still lags even in off-peak hours, and it's
Right.
I'm hearing the complaints almost daily now from my teammates saying, "Hey, we can't hear you. You're dropping out a lot," and then they'll see my character bounce around all over the field, and then it will wreck our game because, well, it's hard to carry the team if I can't connect.
Humble brag much? Or maybe that was just straight up bragging?
It was straight up bragging because, well, a sixth of the team is down, pretty much, and it shouldn't happen. But yeah, speaking of that internet service, though, which I believe you've experienced some of this before, it's just in a different amount. They have had their data caps in quote trial areas for a while, and that was 300 gigabytes
Yep.
per month. And I believe you blew over that a few times.
Oh, it was trivial to do that.
Yeah. Well, Comcast is now expanding their cap to more regions, and if you look at the link, the FAQ, you should be able to see which region is covered, which regions. It lists a few like Alabama, Arizona, Maine, Georgia, Tennessee. What it looks like it's mostly southeast and a few Midwest and northeast areas, and they're effective at different times. And in November, even more regions are affected, but they have the data cap spread to other regions as of this time, as well as in the near future. But here's one thing that has mixed results as far as opinion I've read from people so far. It's 1 terabyte a month,
Right.
which is more than 3 times the previous cap. Now, it's still a cap, and some people are not happy about that, but seems to be a much more useful cap, and they have made their own cutesy little video about how you can use that data. Some of their examples I agree with, some of them I don't, not so much. Like the first, like the GIF one, like, yeah, that's a trivial amount of data to begin with. It's like small pictures. And their picture of the squirrel at the very beginning, which they said was 600 kilobytes. I looked up a 1080p photo that I took a screenshot of on my Xbox, and it was like 3.9 megabytes.
Well, that squirrel was probably a GIF, which they are tiny. There's very little information in there.
Yeah. It was, yeah. But yeah, my static picture was larger than that thing. But they go on, and
yeah, none of these pictures are detailed.
No, they're very iffy and well, subjective. But what do you think? Is terabyte a big improvement?
Over 300 gigs, yeah, but so I don't know. I know I might even blow over that. Problem is when I went to business internet, they don't have a data monitoring tool you can look at.
Oh, really?
So I have to monitor it locally, and I never set up the equipment here to monitor how much I actually use. But before, we were hitting 400 or 500 gigabytes, and that was before I started my YouTube channel, before I started actually doing stuff on it.
Yep.
So
now, some controversy I have heard about the new plan is that they still don't count their own services towards the data cap, which is controversial for hopefully obvious reasons. It's preferential treatment.
Yeah, I've got
And
mixed feelings on that, and the reason I have mixed feelings is if I was to go and I was to set up a network, then traffic inside my network, and this is how it used to work back in the day.
Mhm.
Like if you were on, your mom and pop ISP, traffic inside that mom and pop ISP cost them nothing except for electricity. So if me and you were in the same town and we had the same ISP and we were doing this conversation now, well, actually, this conversation wouldn't work. If we were using like the old school stuff and just talking back and forth between each other,
Mhm.
then like a Skype call would work because that's now point to point after the connection set up. That wouldn't cost anything. The ISP wouldn't have to pay anything. And this is how the phone services work too. But once you left that ISP, there was a bridge, and basically what they've come up with, this was back in the 90s when they came up with this originally, was a peering arrangement. So your ISP would just assume that the other ISP they were connected to would send about the same amount of data across.
Right.
And where that has finally stopped working is with services like streaming service like YouTube, Netflix, or everybody's going to Facebook because everybody's going to these handful of providers for most of their data usage.
Yeah, these high density data sources.
Right. So they're taking in more of the cost. Like if I'm on Comcast and I stream from YouTube,
Mhm.
Comcast is having to bear most of the expense for that stream. Now, whether that's significant, I don't know, but I do know that they have to bear most of the expense because of the peering arrangement.
Right.
Because now I'm sending a little bit of data to YouTube, and then the ISP YouTube's on, which is a bad example because now it's Google. Really, it's a one of the top tier ones.
Your
They're
competitor.
sitting on, but the point is, I send a little data, and they send me a lot of data back.
Right. It's highly directional traffic.
Right.
And I can I have mixed feelings about that really. I believe there's some legit excuse for them to be upset about that, but then again, um, I don't because
Well,
it's
instead of
there.
doing data caps,
Here's
I
a
would.
few things aside from the data cap. Uh, the content being demanded is being demanded by the paying customer for one. Two, there are some ways to mitigate that traffic. Like Netflix, for example, basically goes to the ISPs and would like to hand them a server with a copy of all of their stuff on it. So it would not have to travel across their lines and their bridges as much and therefore reduce much of the burden that the ISPs
Right, and that's a
have to
good way to
bear.
do it. But the Netflix example you're using, they got the crap suit out of them over it because they were going into like Comcast and Charters and major ISPs and putting these servers up, and they weren't going to the mom and pops, which still exist, and putting a server in their building because it didn't make much sense. So what happened is they put their server in Comcast's data closets. Comcast, the expense for Comcast to stream those bits goes way down, but the mom and pop's expense stays the same.
Mm-hmm.
So the smaller ISPs ended up suing Netflix, saying you can't do that because you're showing preferential treatment to the big companies.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as I know, they had to pull them all out.
Oh wow, this is the first time I've heard of this, but
Yeah, I don't know if they had to pull it out, but I do know that they got sued over it, and that put a stop to it. I know no new ones are going in like that, which is kind of
interesting.
sad because there's other advantages to it besides the fact that it saves the ISP money. Like it takes buffering time way down.
Oh yeah, if you have more nodes to access your service from,
Or more importantly, how close you are.
yeah, that's what
So
I'm talking about. Like if you have like a,
okay,
let's just say Where is Netflix based? Is it based in Washington? I forget.
I
Anyways,
don't know, but where the company's based has nothing to do with where the servers are based. Like Amazon's
right,
based somewhere out
right,
west, like maybe even in California. In fact, I think they are based in California, but their servers are in like New York, Virginia, and there's a couple out west.
right.
They're all over
Um,
the place.
right. Like, there used to be a certain electronics distribution company that only had one warehouse in the country, and it was in Illinois. Before, this was also before Amazon Prime, too, I would order something from them and it would take 2 days to arrive. Now, once they added a second warehouse, one that was much, much closer to home, I got it in a single day. The same analogy I feel applies to internet traffic. It just travels at a much, much higher speed, and it can potentially travel at the speed of light. So basically,
Okay.
really,
But
really
we're
fast.
the
But
point
still,
is,
it's
no matter
light
what
can only go fast, so
matter
fast.
what speed it's running at, if there's one server in Washington State, it's going to take much less time if you put another server in Atlanta
Right,
for the East Coast.
right.
Same way.
But yeah, there's ways, and I believe people who are heavily invested in the industry can figure out more ways to reduce the data burden on everybody.
Okay, well, let's move on. So I've got an interesting one. I skipped over the Wii U, so I don't really have a lot to say about that. But there's you know about the new Nintendo that's coming out.
Yeah,
There's
I've heard some rumors about this NX
right,
or next generation.
which is the code name, which is very odd because the rumor is very odd because there's been some material that's been released that shows the NX packaging and it's branded with NX. So what makes it odd is that, as far as I know, Nintendo has never had a code name and then released their console with the code name.
Right.
So let me see if I can find. I hope it didn't get buried too much. Okay. Yeah, so there's been some updates and changes. So I don't see the pictures, and I'm not going to dig through Reddit too much to find the pictures again. But yeah, it sounds like it's going to be $300 for the base one, and then the bundle starting at 400.
Which is
And
not a bad price to start with.
and the part I like, I believe it said 5 release titles. I'm trying to find it. Oh, it is finally 1080p. So welcome to 2000.
Huzzah!
Actually, compared to
Unfortunately
2005.
for them, the Xbox will be fully 4K by next year.
You have to have a 4K TV. In games, it'll do 4K.
Yeah, we have two 4K TVs here at this apartment now.
Oh, and here's something that's been a rumor for a while, that the games will be on cartridges.
Ooh, nostalgia factor. When?
So the reason they moved off of cartridges was because you could store more on CDs.
Right, as the technology of the day was progressing.
Well, even now, you could store more. Well, actually, maybe not. Maybe depending. I guess depending, you could put a full-fledged SD hard drive in a cartridge. But I don't know. That seems kind of strange that they're moving back to cartridges. Because that was the other thing too, is by moving off of cartridges or moving the way we've been moving, and Nintendo even does this now, is the game the games will update the console and have to download updates from online. Now I will say
Right.
the Nintendo, from what I understand, is nowhere near as bad as the others. Like I've heard people rant about, you know, 40, 50, 100 gigabyte updates when they first plug in a game. It's on a DVD.
Oh yeah, like Gears of War 4. I haven't got it myself, but I know someone who has already. He got an early release copy of it. He had like a 46 or 56 gigabytes install to handle, and it needed to download another update that was roughly 12 gigabytes immediately after installing the main game.
Right.
And the game is only effectively out as of what, today?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Now,
today's the day. 10, 11.
I didn't notice this before when I read through the first time. They're calling this a verified leak. Okay.
Supposedly meaning someone within the company that's apparently reputable has confirmed it, although they have not released it.
Although, here's the other reason why I don't think, if this is the logo, I don't think this is the logo. Because that's the Nintendo 64 logo that they've just kind of morphed into an X on one side.
Yeah.
So I doubt that's it. I mean, I could see maybe somebody internally just kind of, knocking that out just so they have something as a placeholder.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to buy this one. I didn't buy the Wii U, which I may end up going back buying it, especially if this doesn't have backwards compatibility.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of games on there I want to play. Like, I do want to play some of the Mario games that I haven't played. Like, I really wanted to play Mario Maker, but it's hard to justify $400 for one game.
Unless you're Paul Throt.
Well,
he's on the Call of Duty crack.
Well, that's the other thing too. Paul Throt, since we're name dropping, that's his thing. Call of Duty that's his thing. I don't have a game that I play. Like,
right.
Closest would be like Skyrim or maybe Fallout, because those are the ones that I grab and I'll play and play and play and play and just keep playing forever.
Right.
But I also play a bunch of different stuff, so it doesn't make sense for me to, drop that much money on one game. Unless that was my game. Like, if I only played Skyrim, okay, fine, I will drop $400 just so I can play Skyrim.
Yeah, Destiny's kind of been that game for me, and Halo was pretty easy. I mean, it was like the one-time $60 game, and hey, lots of free updates, which is awesome.
Okay. Yeah. Well, somehow we got out of sync. Yeah. Because I thought this was going to be the last story, but it's your turn now. And it's a funny one to talk about anyway.
Yes. I applaud this guy. He's very dedicated. As many people unfortunately know, Hurricane Mathew decided to try to hit the coasts of the extreme southeast, most notably Florida, the coastal regions of Georgia and the Carolinas. But before that, the Bahamas and the Caribbean in general.
Right.
Well, one guy has a now kind of rare 25-year-old car known as an E30 generation BMW M3, which is like the special high-performance sports version of the 3 Series sedan. Yeah. Except this one is a coupe, I believe. Yeah. No, sedan. My mistake. Second guess myself. Anyways, he has a pristine version of this car, and it
looks very nice.
Yeah, it's pretty good for a car that's over a quarter century old and one of the last remaining true driver's cars that BMW has made, according to many purists. And so, yeah, he wanted to protect his car, and he drove it through the front door, opened, of course, of his Florida home. Well, and he spent some good, lovingly quality time with it.
Yeah.
If you look through the pictures, you will see.
It's only a couple of pictures I saw.
Yeah, you can go to his Instagram.
Yeah, let's do that.
For more pictures. Click on the main picture there.
Before I die.
Yeah, there's one picture I really like of him just sitting there at his little coffee table next to his couch with a bowl of pumpkin spice Cheerios and a gallon of Castrol GTX motor oil for his car.
How romantic.
See, there it is in the middle of your screen.
Yeah, it's here. I'm just clicking through and looking at all the stuff. It's pretty self-explanatory, and I do
Yeah.
think it's pretty awesome that he can even do this, because I don't even know if I've ever lived in a place that I could have pulled the car into the front door.
Yeah, I've been in homes with double doors before, but not as the front door. But that's basically what he had here. He had double front doors in his home. And yeah, the weather was coming. And, well, I don't blame him. I've heard of some people losing their carports, entire carports, to the hurricane in the past few days. But he protected his car, so that's cool. Props to him.
Yep.
Enthusiast approved.
So yeah, I could see you doing something like this. I really could. So let me go get the last story. Which this one, I'd almost file it under comedy, except it's so sad that this issue's happened. Okay, so what's on the screen is, I think, the general story about the Samsung Note 7 and their exploding batteries. Now, this has been going on for a couple of months now, where basically the battery would just burst into flames.
Has it really been a couple of months now? Wow.
I think so. Yeah, because they've had to have time to do the recall.
As far as I know, it's only been a few weeks.
Well, a couple of months would be a few weeks. Let's see if I can find a date in here while I'm...
Yeah, a few weeks as in maybe not a month, but yeah, this is kind of sad because Samsung is such a reputable company and they make great products, and I like their phones.
Oh,
I
yeah.
consider another Samsung as my future phone.
I've
Just
always
don't
had
have
a
one in mind
Samsung
yet.
phone ever since... The last phone I had that was not a Samsung was an LG, which was a really good phone,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a flip phone.
Hmm.
So
That's
7-8
so wild.
years is how I've always had a Samsung. Like, if I didn't have a fairly new phone, I probably would have gotten the Note 7. So
Right.
glad I didn't get that.
Yeah. One of the reasons I went into Windows phones originally back in 2010 is when they had Windows Phone 7, and one of the best phones they had on offer was the Samsung Focus. I love that phone. That was back when the iPhone was still 3.5 inches, and I considered that way too tiny for my hands. And then there was a Samsung Focus for like half the price and with a 4-inch screen that was beautiful, and it had Xbox Live and Office for productivity and so on, and integrated social media at the time. And it was a great phone. That was the last Samsung phone I've had, unfortunately, but I've had good phones since then as well with Nokia. They make good phones. I like them.
Right. Okay, so like I said, I don't have the link anymore to the specific one, but one of them actually caught fire on a plane. And I don't. If I find it, I'll post it up here, maybe put it in the show notes later. But nothing really happened. I think it caught fire. Probably everybody went, "Oh my god!" Then it
I think
fizzled out because that's how the batteries work. And this is in defense of Samsung a little bit. It's not Samsung's failure exactly. It's the manufacturer of the batteries they made for them.
Right.
They did some shortcuts, and we're overall we're demanding more and more from our batteries.
Yes.
But the technology, I mean, we've come up against this wall known as the laws of physics.
Yeah.
I mean,
And out of And I'll have to add, out of millions and millions of phones that we consume each and every year, it's amazing we don't have more fires, to be honest. It really is.
Well, the
It's just,
lithium ion batteries. Have you ever looked at how a lithium ion battery is designed?
yes,
Like the
they have
internal.
lots of basically small metal bits or plates and an electrolyte, and they're pretty close together.
Right.
But if they get too
But
close, in the case of these batteries, they will combust.
well, yes. But what specifically I'm talking about for lithium ions, there's those plates you're talking about. They're designed once they get too hot to break apart, basically like a fuse. And
Hmm.
once they're broke, the battery's useless. It
Right.
won't. You can't do anything with it again. It's you just throw it away. You're done. Now that I'm thinking about it, and this is just me speculating. I'm wondering if they've crammed so much crap in there now that before they break, they touch,
Mm.
and that would cause them, because that's what causes batteries like that to catch fire. Like if you ever want to take a lithium ion battery and catch it on fire on purpose, if you take it long ways and shove like a pin or something, like a piece of metal, thin piece of metal, all the way through it, if you could do it in one stroke, it'll flame up,
Hmm.
and then that's all. It'll smoke really bad and it'll smell terrible.
Yeah, chemicals
Now,
and all that.
the ones that they're not putting in cell phones, thankfully, yet, but the next one up, the lithium polymers, which are used in a lot of robotics, those will catch fire and blow up.
Yeah, I take extra care with my batteries for my drone quadcopters. They have the soft case lithium polymer batteries,
Okay,
and
so you do have
they scare me.
those.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they're so sensitive. You have to have a special charger that charges each cell individually because each cell has to match voltage exactly.
Right.
But the neat thing about them, if you ever have a cell that starts failing,
Hmm.
it will charge it in such a way it'll basically degrade the other cells so that they don't force it to catch fire.
Hmm.
So if you have a cell like in the middle that will only charge 50%, then all the others will only charge 50%.
So, in a way, it sort of self-deprecates as opposed to self-immolate.
Exactly. I like that. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd rather have that than self-immolation for sure. Yeah. Yeah. I kind of I'm kind of excited about the next generation of batteries, to be honest.
Yeah.
With lithium sulfur is a compound. I think that's fairly close. And then there's another calcium ion batteries that are also in the works, but they are still in the prototype and development stage. And they're working out the research for that. But they've made a breakthrough recently, as of an article I read in one of the science mags. But there's not a whole lot to talk about yet.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about the lithium sulfur ones. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I really can't talk intelligently on that one because I don't know enough about it to really say anything other
Yeah,
than it exists, sort of.
it does exist, and it has a really long name I'm not going to repeat because I cannot pronounce it, despite my pharmaceutical background of sorts. Um, yeah, they're there. They're making progress. They being researchers and scientists, and hopefully they'll be ready in the not too distant future. It's very useful. We put batteries in so many devices, and it's in my Microsoft Band, aka a
Mhm.
watch, my phone, my car, a future car I'm considering, and they are just too small, in my opinion. They don't have enough capacity just yet, and they take a while to charge, and they're expensive. The going rate for car batteries, hybrid batteries more specifically, is about $350 a kilowatt hour. And to put that in perspective, these phone batteries are way smaller than what go in cars. So they're getting smaller and cheaper, thinner. And right now, the Lumia 950 XL that I'm holding in my hand as I speak, more than half the weight of it is its massive 3.31 amp battery, which is a lot larger than iPhones. So, yeah. Did the call drop? Ah, okay. Well, I think that's about all we had for the show this week.
Yes.
And yeah. Did you have anything else to add to that battery conversation? No. Okay. Seems we're having a couple of technical difficulties, but let's see. Anyways, well, we hope you. Let's see. Bill, I think we had left was the last question of the week. Not sure. Well, I think that's all for the podcast this week, ladies and gents. If you like this podcast, please hit that like button and or subscribe to Joe of the West channel at YouTube, on YouTube rather. And if you like his content, please follow him at Joe of the West on Twitter. And if you would like to find me on YouTube, you can find me at youtube.com/Zeal of Sparta, or you can find me on Twitter at Zeal of Sparta as well as Twitch and hopefully Beam.io or Beam.pro rather in the near future. So have a great day, people.